The self-insert meme.
Fuck off.
This image went around a lot, and people were claiming that Alex was a self-insert of the developer, claiming that this person here is Andrew. This is Andrew. This is Andrew. This is what he looks like. This is who he is. Notice how those don't exactly look the same there.
Where's the beard? Where's the beard?
Continuing from this, it's like, it's also ridiculous because a lot of people talk about Alex's obsession and how, like, oh, this is really similar to what Andrew had said about it. And it's like, no, it isn't. Alex's obsession is really toxic, and it even gets to the point where, the whole entire game is really, like, drilling into Alex that it's like, no, what you're doing is bad. You're ruining all of your friendships. You're, going on these stupid adventures that have no end point just because you think something might have happened. And the other aspect of it is, okay, yes, as I'm writing a character, it's me writing a character, but that character has their own voice that is different from my voice,
And I mean, like, if that's the logic you're going to use, then every character ever written is a self-insert.
Right. So it's like there's these different layers of stuff that just don't make any sense. But I talked with Andrew about this, and he wrote a pretty lengthy thing he would like for me to read for everyone. The origins of Alec Eagleston, or Alex Eggleston, depending on which reality you're in. He says, I'd describe Alex as a grown man stuck in the past, unable to see reality around him because of his faults, unable to accept his wrongs, unable to see that life isn't a story. People aren't characters, and things don't unfold magically in his interest. Alex sees reality as he wants it to be. Some people fight windmills, others chase mysterious missing women.
There's
from
the line.
And because reality is what he creates of it, he sees everything as being connected and for a greater purpose that ultimately would serve him. He delusionally believes himself to be the main character in a story, all because his giant ego created it to shelter him. His childhood is the best part of his life. The things from his childhood protect him from seeing the truth as he chooses to break his reality through his actions. Each time he does, a comforting piece of media comes to mind, and the adventure is on again. His character is someone who's presented with a near-ego death experiences over and over again. However, he refuses to step over that line and truly overcome the part of him that makes him this way. To do so would be too painful for a weak guy like him. That's kind of like this overview of Alex's character. He also gave me a brief history of what inspired Alex as a character. But yeah, it's he has this really specific goal in mind, and even Andrew has mentioned, hey, he's not doing the right thing. He's getting punished for fucking up constantly. And if it was a self-insert and you're trying to make this hero story of how you saved the day, why would you put that in the game? Why would you intentionally write that? It makes no sense.
Yeah, I've never... Well, first of all, the description that you read for us, the game conforms to that. It's not just... I don't want people to think of like, oh, man, they're just trying to explain the game to people years later. No, that's all basically what the game portrays him as.
It really does. It really tells. And, like, that's part of what this stream is all about. I want to expose that, hey, when people say that there's more to this game, they're not just bullshitting you. We're not fan fictioning up a real history of what's going on. It's, like, actually there. It's there. You just aren't looking deep enough.
It took time, to process a lot of the things about Alex's character. It's not something you just play the game and you have an instant response. I mean, you do have an instant response, but that response changes as you think about it and reflect. This is a very introspective game. It takes time to process these things and what they mean to you, because people are going to have radically different opinions of Alex for very different reasons, because you're going to reflect on yourself. You're going to reflect on people that you know throughout your life. and you're going to see where it applies. And I understand.
Okay, I don't want to reflect on myself.
Well, then you shouldn't be playing an indie RPG.
But video games are just toys.
For children.
Then you should go play the video games that are basically toys.
We'll tackle that one next. That one's a really good one. I love that one. It's so good.
Oh god, that's so
there are two main things I want to say.
Yeah.
So like, first of all, it's like about the self-insert thing. I feel the first red flag about Alex not being a self-insert is the fact that no one likes him. He's a horrible person. You are supposed to hate him.
Yeah.
No one who goes out of their way to write a character as a self-insert goes, hey, hate me. Look at how much of a horrible person I am.
So I'll just go over the little history that Andrew wrote for me on Alex, and then we'll move on to the Dick Show. Alex began as a conversation between me and my brother. He remarked that the popular hipster look of 2014 made people look like time travelers. At the time, Brian and I were around quite a few hipsters. They took it very seriously. Many went out of their way to dress in authentic clothing from the early 1920s and 70s. Yes, those two very, very specific periods. Being in the same room as them often felt like being at a time travelers convention. Brian told a story from his class about someone saying they dressed as a protagonist, a weird statement, as if they were a movie or a TV show. I had heard someone else describe themselves as a protagonist a few years before. Unlike the person Brian knew, he took it truly to an unhealthy level outside of unusual fashion choices. The person who said it to me wasn't a hipster in the 2014 sense of the word. They were somebody who described themselves as Cloud from Final Fantasy VII, and they often talk about how their devil-may-care attitude was modeled after Cloud. Cringe, I know. Cloud is cool as hell, but only because he's in a video game. People like that in real-life situations are very challenging to be friends with, especially in tense situations. This person was the first bully I encountered. I modeled Alex's attitude and expectations of people after this guy. Outside of some specific stuff I heard him say, Alex is very different at his core than this person, but they share a similar mentality, that they were a hero in a story, and everyone else was just a supporting cast. It doesn't really matter what happened to them as long as the hero made it through. I remained friends with him for about 2 years and constantly forgave him for weird outbursts and prickly comments, but I was a fool and I failed to see what was going on and all the damage he had done to our other friends. A bunch of people had seen it, but I was blind to it. I had a pretty sheltered upbringing, and this guy was my first male friend. We found these sorts of people to be very interesting and thought they'd make a unique protagonist for a game about the delusional reality they live in. A rebuke of their biggest flaw, making themselves to be the main character. And this is why Alex is the main character.